Hello, this is Tom and Chris, those film guys, and with the Avengers having been released on Blu Ray, and it being the only superhero film of this year that we haven't reviewed, we thought it relevant to give our honest opinion of this year's highest grossing film thus far. And the film grossed, what was it?
1.5 billion.
5 billion.
No, 1.5 billion.
Oh, the 5. Oh, Jesus.
I
thought you were being genuinely serious about the 5 billion.
1.5 billion. You just think about that for a second.
1.5 billion.
Not the highest grossing film of all time, but still, in my opinion, massively over what it should be.
Why would anyone ever spend or 1.5 billion on this? Really?
And in case that hasn't already set the tone, this is probably going to strike some people as a very controversial review, in that we will probably break away from most of the opinions on this film circulating the internet.
Bring on the hate mail. I'm ready for it.
As if I haven't had enough already with me praising Batman and Robin.
Oh, bring it on! I'm looking forward to it. All the hate for it.
Okay,
right.
So I think we should go over very very briefly what we thought of the other films. So in 2008, this is where it all started. We had Iron Man, and
it it gave us what that gave us was it showed us that you can do funny and humorous, but still and good action, and still include a good character in there.
Yeah, and the character actually seemed to go on some kind of journey with, him being an arms dealer, arms manufacturer, and then having this change of perception and choosing to fight against that. And I actually thought Iron Man the action was a bit lacking, especially in the end, but as a film overall, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it did opt for the Rock'em Sock'em Robots fight scene at the end.
Oh, with Jeff Bridges as Ironmonger.
But that's the character journey is just forgotten in Iron Man 2.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that. But then we had the Incredible Hulk, which was a reboot of or a reboot for the Avengers.
Yeah.
And this was the first time we ever saw another superhero come into the tie-in films, with Tony Stark came into the Incredible Hulk at the end.
Yeah, and also we should mention that at the end of Iron Man, of the credits of the first one, we saw Nick Fury, who said he's here to talk to Tony Stark about the Avenger Initiative, and that kind of set people's minds away on, is this Avengers film actually happening? Is it, where's this leading?
I sat there going, okay, who is this? Who is he? I know it's after the credits, and usually I don't stay till after the credits, but this time I did, because I heard there was something good at the end, and I found myself going, who? Why? What's the point?
Well, as the viewers probably know, we haven't read any comic books.
No.
We don't read them. Like I am familiar with some of the stories and aspects of the characters, so I knew at this point who the Avengers were, who they involved, and who Nick Fury was. But as we get into the review, there will be things that I'll talk about that I did not know.
I have actually read the first Avengers comic book.
Have you?
With Ant-Man in it.
Yeah, where was Ant-Man, by the way, in this film?
Yeah, that is a good question, and that first comic has the Hulk juggling elephants in a circus with clown makeup on.
Obviously, that was a deleted scene, or that must be on the cutting room floor somewhere, because I demand to see that in the Avengers. Just Hulk juggling elephants.
I didn't understand what was going on, but it just, that's the Avengers. first comic.
And then from the Incredible Hulk film, which, by the way, next to Thor, is probably my favourite Avengers tie-in film. I thought what it did well was what Ang Lee's didn't was it was a summer action film, but it also had, you know, good acting with Edward Norton. I thought he was a really good choice for Bruce Banner, and I thought that having Abomination at the end was really where the series needed to go, because I mean, what did we get in Ang Lee's version? We got mutated poodle dogs. Okay.
But I think my opinion on this, Edward Norton is a great actor, and I do like Edward Norton, and I do like Tim Roth as well. But it just felt like a film about nothing, about a man walking around doing nothing and just going through the motions of being the Hulk. There wasn't. I didn't feel there was a character there. Whereas much hate for Ang Lee's, that at least had some semblance of character, and it had a lot of metaphor, and it tried a lot of things with its characters, which can be praised, but that doesn't mean it's a good film. But I do prefer metaphor for the Incredible Hulk over mindless action, which I got here.
I can see that, and I praise it for trying to do that with the character of the Hulk, but to me that film, it kind of missed the point. It bogged the film down, and that's why I think most people dislike that film. But I can agree with that it tried to do something new with the character. And then yeah,
it was this one,
Iron Man 2. Yeah, I refuse to admit that Iron Man 2 exists.
It wasn't a film. It was, I think, it was just a trailer for the Avengers.
Yeah, it was just a case of throwing everyone who hadn't already been established or will already be established into the film, saying, "Oh, look, the Avengers is happening. Look at all these characters that you will see in the Avengers." And it lost its focus as primarily what it should be, an Iron Man film. It didn't further his character journey in any way from the first film. It didn't build upon anything that was in the first film, and it tried to take on an element from the comics where Tony Stark is battling with alcoholism, and it was just played off as a one-time joke when it should be a very real issue for the character.
And the whole thing that he's like dying is just completely thrown, like it doesn't go anywhere.
No.
And you see him do things, and there's, oh my god, there's that he picks up the Captain America shield. I mean, seriously? Come on.
And Captain America film basically retcons that whole scene from Iron Man 2 anyway, where it shows a different origin for the shield. So, yeah, Iron Man 2 I hated. I refuse to admit it exists, and it currently stands as the only Avengers tie-in film I do not own.
So, I still don't understand who Nick Fury is. I know who he is now, but watching it, I found myself sort of going, I don't know who this character is. They haven't mentioned him by name. They haven't. Who is he? He's Samuel L. Jackson with an eye patch.
That's pretty much who his character is.
Who's Scarlett Johansson? What's she doing? Is she only just there to look good? Is she there to be a distraction for the audience?
Really, she is only in this film for two reasons. Both of which fall into fan service, but you know what I'm getting at. That is the only reason she is in that film, and kind of the only reason she was in Iron Man 2 as well.
Yeah.
And then we move on to Thor, and I actually really liked Thor, but where I dislike it is if you watch the deleted scenes, there is a lot of good material and a lot of good character development that was actually cut out.
Yeah, there is actually. They did opt for cutting out some of the character stuff, which I think wasn't. I mean, if it did it feel like it would have diffused the action? No. So I don't understand why they didn't keep that in. But yeah, I liked. I did like the relationship between Thor and Loki, and Loki was a sort of, he did more mischieving, more deceiving in this than he did in what we'll get into.
Oh yeah, and going back to your point that they cut the character development out to have a bigger focus on the action. If anything, if more character development was in the film, it would have surely enhanced the action, because it would have clearly showed the audience what each character was fighting for, and it would have been a bit of more of an emotional struggle for the character of Thor when you previously see how his relationship was with his brother, you know, before he was banished. And I just think a lot of good stuff was left out. But as it stands, Thor is probably my favourite Avengers film tie-in, because going in I knew nothing about Thor. I mean, I knew of the character of Thor, I knew about Loki and Odin, but that is literally where my knowledge of Thor ended. So
my favourite thing in that was Anthony Hopkins
as
Odin.
I cast you out.
He is the best thing in that by a mile. Oh, and Stellan Skarsgård as well.
Yeah.
He makes that film.
And then
I liked it, but it was just a throwaway one for me.
Yeah, and nothing more throwaway for me than the Captain America film. I hated this film. Maybe that's because I dislike the character of Captain America. I don't find him particularly interesting as a character. Captain America next to Iron Man 2 are my least favourite ones out of the run-up to Avengers.
And I have to disagree. I actually quite liked it, but mainly because I found it a good throwaway. Well, it was very throwaway.
Yeah.
But I did like
I did like Hugo Weaving hamming it up as the Red Skull.
Hugo Weaving, yeah.
Yeah.
But it seemed to me like it was a throwback to those old adventure films that sort of, you know, throwback to the Indiana Jones and things like that, which I liked.
Yeah.
But it did not have any form of character in there. Captain America was the blandest bland person you could ever meet, ever. There was nothing there to care about at all, and they did this thing where he becomes an archetype of himself, the Captain America. He's used for propaganda, and that in itself could have made a good movie. That he's being used the American government is using him for propaganda purposes, and he wants to break away from that.
They kind of do touch on that in the film briefly through quite a humorous musical montage.
Yeah, not enough in my opinion.
Yeah, they could have done a lot more with it. And so basically that sets the stage for where we as viewers were coming in to go and see the Avengers. So we'll give our brief opinion on what we thought of Avengers, and then we'll go into the story a bit more. So we'll start with you, Tom. What did you think of the Avengers?
How can I put this in a nice way? This film was fucking shit. That's about as nice a way as I can put it.
Strong words there, strong words. Well, I guess I don't think I hate it as much as you did. Certainly,
well, I wouldn't say I hate. That's a lie. I'd say it was bad, but I didn't hate it Transformers 3 or Michael Bay style.
And you can
but
certainly
it was still terrible.
You can certainly draw comparisons with it to Transformers in terms of how its action is presented, but we'll get into that later. For me, I honestly can't think of a film that has done what Avengers has in setting up each individual hero or character over the years since 2008, and then fully realising the amalgamation of all the characters and actually seeing it be released. And I honestly can't think of certainly not another superhero film or film in general that has brought this many characters together under one film. So for that, I congratulate it.
Yeah, but then you have the problem of it. It falls apart. It crushes under the weight of itself, because you've got the amalgamation of all these different superheroes in one film. You really need to watch every single one of the films that came before in order to get what's going on in the film.
Oh, totally, yeah. As a standalone film, if you know nothing of what's come before, you will be completely lost at the start of this film. And in many ways, I have seen all the previous films, and even I was kind of lost at the start, at the very beginning of the film. But yeah, as a regular popcorn action flick, if you want to see stuff explode for 2 hours, then you will like this film. But
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours, pardon me.
That was a long haul.
It was. And
I did get bored in the middle of it, I have to admit.
Yeah, me too. But if you want,
but what I was saying was that you have to watch all the previous films, and that's my problem. Going off on a bit of a tangent with the idea of crossing over superheroes in films. If you're not familiar with the material, you won't understand it.
No.
If you haven't seen the previous films, you won't understand it. So the idea of crossing over stuff, you'll sit there and you'll be lost. You'll be at a loss, and you'll be thinking it's very niche when it should be mainstream. It should be a mainstream, like, popcorn action flick. And the idea of crossing these people over, it doesn't work for me, and it didn't work in the previous films, and it doesn't work here.
I see the need for, the hardcore comic book fans to have things that will pander to them and that they will pick up on, but nowadays in superhero films you also have to cater to the people who, like us, know nothing of the comic books, or we know, we've watched the individual films, we know briefly about the characters, but for most of the other stuff in the film, we don't know who these characters are. We don't know their backstory like some comic book fans might. So that's where I'm kind of at a loss with Avengers, is that, as you said, it should be mainstream, and it is very niche in how it's presented and with the mythos it creates. Now, just going back to my overall opinion of the film, as I say, if you want generic action film, it's okay. It's nothing you haven't seen before. It's very similar to other action set pieces you've seen. Gigantic flying robots flying around a city, blowing things up. Sound familiar? But in terms of character, it's fun to see all these people together, but you are not getting any kind of substance, character development, or anything. This film purely serves to just house all of these heroes blowing stuff up for 2.5 hours, and if that's what you want, then that's fine.
Yeah, that's it. You hit it on the head. It's just an action film. It doesn't try to be sophisticated in any sense of the word. And it is just a generic action film. That is it. It is nothing more than that. And that's that. And how it made 1.5 billion, I will not understand, because it is nothing special.
Well,
it really isn't.
The Transformers film, certainly the last one, made over 1 billion as well, and
God help humanity.
Yeah.
Actually, smite humanity.
Where I'm kind of torn with this film is that if this had been an in-depth character study all over the place, would that's kind of how I thought towards The Dark Knight Rises, that was too much of a character study and it kind of lost its focus on being a Batman film. So I think that the Avengers' heart was in the right place, but I would have liked something a bit, I would have liked something in terms of character development. The other Avengers films, apart from Iron Man 2, did have some semblance of character development here and there sprinkled through, and that would have maybe enhanced my viewing experience of the Avengers. As it stands, it's just kind of a very bland, dry, I almost want to say unoriginal action film. There really isn't anything new or innovative in this film.
Nothing. It literally is nothing we haven't seen before. People flying around and hitting things, and robots fighting, and so it honestly is nothing we haven't seen before. And people are going crazy over it, which baffles me.
What I will commend is Joss Whedon's script, in that the dialogue is very, very good in this film. Like, Joss Whedon is good at making ensemble pieces. He's very good at juggling all of these characters in a team, and giving each one enough screen time, and each of their scenes will feature them and will further their character journey, I guess. But in terms of story, this film is severely lacking. I mean, you can literally say the plot of this film in one sentence. Bad guy from space rocks up with army, wants to take over the world, and Avengers have to stop him. It's that cliched, it's that generic. And in the modern day of superhero films, certainly after Nolan's Batman trilogy's come out, you've really got to step up the game now. You really need something that's going to set this apart from all the other films. And that's really set the bar for how to construct good characters in superhero films. And really, I understand you can have like high octane action. Yeah,
I'm not against that. I mean, you can just have a popcorn flick, but where this, but you still need a semblance of character there, and this has none whatsoever.
Yeah, now I'm not saying that every film has to be the Dark Knight trilogy,
no,
as it's now dubbed. You can still have these films, but as you said, if films can't just be pretty special effects now. They have to have some form of humanity and character there, and this film just didn't have it. And I think now if we break down not each individual one, because we'll be here for decades, but if we just go over like the heroes and villain of this film and really break them down and what sets them apart. And now we may be going into slight spoilers here and there, but come on, you know how this film ends, you know how this plot goes down anyway. So if you haven't seen the Avengers and you want to see it, I suggest you switch off now. You've heard basically what we have to say about it. But yeah, so now we'll go into spoiler territory with the heroes and villains.
Yes. Heroes and villains. I can list the heroes on one hand that weren't used at all, or were hardly used in the film. Captain America.
Yep.
Nick Fury. Hawkeye. You had,
I almost want to say Black Widow.
You had Black Widow, and there was one more. Nick Fury.
Hulk.
Hawkeye. Hulk is one. Yep, Hulk.
So
Hulk
considering that you are bringing all these heroes together, although if you add up the screen time, Captain America still technically gets more screen time. I'm not quite sure how that works. To me, the prominent focus of the heroes is Iron Man. He gets all the best lines of the film. He gets all the cool powers. Now, I'm not saying that the other heroes' powers aren't cool, but the main focus is on Iron Man. And certainly in the action scenes, although it cuts to the people, really the only one doing anything extraordinary is Iron Man. And in fact, going to the very end of the film involving the nuclear bomb, the person who disposes of it is Iron Man. You know, it's it just that whole scene just reminded me of
that scene in Galaxy Quest,
yeah,
where Alan Rickman or Tim
Allen, yeah,
is rolling the sphere into the ship, and then he gets dragged out by the aliens, and Alan Rickman's character goes, "Oh, it's all about you, isn't it?" That is exactly what I thought.
Yeah, and
That's
that's
exactly what I thought.
and I also, well, I know the film's not realistic with all these heroes and metal aliens descending from the skies, but really, would this kind of like United Nations group of people just say, right, we can't hold the city, let's nuke it and wipe out everyone? I was like, no, we just need some kind of action climax to finish off the fighting.
Mm.
And it was just all...
The focus is very much on it. To me, it seems the focus is more on Iron Man, and if that's the case, you should just call it Iron Man 3.
That's true, and
with Avengers tacked on.
Now, all of the heroes do get their most notable scenes, like Hulk, obviously. But honestly, Hulk, as his manifestation of the Green Hulk, is hardly in this film. He only really transforms into him, halfway through for a brief action scene, and then doesn't turn up again till the end. And as much as people are praising Mark Ruffalo's performance as Bruce Banner taking over from Edward Norton, I really didn't much care for it. It just seemed really bland, unenthusiastic.
No, but that's the character. That's the character that's the material he was given. I mean, it didn't. What did he actually do? He sat around on a spaceship, fiddling with a computer.
And then Thor. How the hell? Well, we're given an explanation how Thor comes back to Earth, but it's really hastily done. It's almost like at the end of Thor they wrote themselves into a corner and was like, oh shit, we need to get Thor back for this. He needs to be on Earth with the Avengers. Just have a throwaway line where Odin used dark magic to bring him back.
Ooh, a wizard did it. It was all magic. That's just come on, write something better. Like he I don't know, something more cliched. Like, oh, he really wanted to see Natalie Portman, so he thought about love and got transported back to Earth.
He wished himself off Asgard, yeah. But honestly, other than those three we've talked about, Captain America, Black Widow, and Hawkeye really didn't need to be in this film.
No.
To me, that
Hawkeye
Captain
and
America,
Hawkeye's
obviously.
Arrows for fucking everything.
Well, that's his power. But I mean, when you're up against Captain America, I see the necessity of having, because if they hadn't put him in the film, fanboys would have raged, because he is the leader of the Avengers.
But he doesn't really lead, does he? He doesn't
in terms
really
of that, he
much.
doesn't. And neither does Nick Fury, being the director of the Avengers. He really doesn't do much directing in this film. In fact, he only gets a few scenes, and those are pretty much exposition scenes. And the only really Samuel Jackson thing he does is he shoots one bazooka at a plane. He doesn't even have any shouty one-liners, which I really wanted from Nick Fury. But yeah, when you're up against heroes like Iron Man, Hulk, and Thor, a demigod, are you really gonna want to focus on a guy who hits people over the head with a shield? Or a woman that just fires guns and that's it? Or a guy that has a bow and arrow? It's just, to me, maybe they are part of the Avengers in the comic books, I don't know. Or maybe they just wanted more characters, but honestly, you could have just done this film with Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, and Captain America. It really doesn't need Black Widow or Hawkeye.
I could just imagine Nick Fury when he's Samuel L. Jackson when he's shooting the rocket launcher, going, "And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee."
That's what it should have been. That's exactly what all his dialogue in that film should have been. Or he just gets like a gun to a Chitauri and just goes, "Say what again?" Or something like that.
Say what again?
But from the Chitauri, we move on to the villains. Now, honestly, when this film starts off, I felt like I had missed a previous installment to the Avengers tie-in film, because I was like, who? What? Loki on this planet? How did he get away from Asgard when he went into the portal? Who are these Chitauri people? How does he know them? What are his affiliation with them? Who leads these people? What's their stake in it? because we get a really brief line like that. Once Loki takes control of the Tesseract in the comics, I think it's called the Cosmic Cube. He will give all power. He will give this cube to the Chitauri. Did they really believe that? Did they think that this god of deceit and deception and conniving and mischief will give them this ultimate power?
Well, they must have done, because they sent an army with him. And sorry, but not knowing anything from the comics or anything, who are the Chitauri? What is the Tesseract? What does it do? Like, it's very much the red matter thing from Star Trek, where it creates a black hole and swallows planets and sends people back through time. Can it really do both? Establish that the Tesseract gives unlimited power to the world, or power, generates power.
Yeah.
That can be used for lights and stuff and electricity. Also, can it creates a portal so that the Chitauri can enter the Earth and destroy everything. Can it really do both? It didn't establish what it could do. It didn't explain what it could do. I was sat there going through it. They thinking, well, they keep talking about the Tesseract, but what actually is it? And what does Loki want? Why does, just find some other planet to enslave? Why Earth specifically? Why Earth? Why do any of this? What? Who are the Chitauri?
Well, I'm all for audience participation, and like when Watchmen came out, I went out and got the graphic novel of Watchmen and read it, because I'd heard that some people might not be able to follow the film as effectively. I'm all for that, but I wasn't aware that the Chitauri were going to be the main antagonists of the film. So going in, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know who the Chitauri were. I didn't know their military strength or their agenda or anything. And when you are a casual viewer and not a comic book reader, that this is where the film really has to explain things to you, and
yeah,
it just didn't. Oh, and while we're on the subject of villains, Loki in this film, this guy's motivation makes no sense. I mean,
nope.
in Thor, he wanted to be ruler of Asgard by destroying the frost giant's planet because we need an action climax. That I didn't really buy that ending either. But here, it's all over the place. The guy wants to rule a kingdom, so he decides to choose Earth because that's relevant, I guess. And he goes to this bunch of army people, the Chitauri, who we've never seen before, and automatically strikes an alliance with them. And from then on, really, Loki is just played as a joke in the film. It's certainly in the last action climax. He's like a cartoon character, and this isn't faulting Tom Hiddleston's performance. He is probably one of the best actors working in the business today. And I've seen him in the BBC show The Hollow Crown, and he was absolutely perfect in this. And he's good in this too, but to me it's just the material he was given. It seems almost too simplistic for him, like he could do so much better than this film.
Like, he's not really that threatening a villain either.
No.
Like, he doesn't... And actually, what does he actually do?
Well, once the
that
Chitauri
last act,
come
he is
down...
nowhere to be seen. He
No.
flies around on stuff and does nothing. He doesn't... He's there for no reason at all, other than to get the Chitauri down to Earth so they can have a big action climax at the end.
Exactly. You
one
summed
big
it up
walking
perfectly
plot
there.
point.
There is one good scene I do like with Loki, actually, and that's where he's trapped on board the SHIELD aircraft, and Black Widow kind of comes to interrogate him. And that really showcases Tom Hiddleston's acting ability and talent. And that is, good dialogue that was given to him there. But it's just the rest of the film. A villain has to be intimidating. A villain has to have some kind of threatening quality about them.
Yeah.
And
And
he's just played for a joke at the end. The thing that gets the biggest laugh in the film is where Hulk throws him around like a rag doll, and then he's just out of the film for after that.
it, yeah, he's
Now,
not.
I'm not saying you can't have humour in the film, because that was quite humorous. But in terms of a villain perspective, when you belittle the villain that much, you lose all sense of threat in your film, and that's what I think was lacking.
To be quite honest, he didn't have much threat to begin with.
That's true.
Anyway, like he talked a good talk, but didn't walk a good walk.
And I suppose you could argue that is the character of Loki, but then again, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot there. You can reimagine the character to make him threatening, but still retain the same qualities that he has in the comic books.
The Loki in Son of the Mask was more threatening than this guy.
Oh God. I apologise, viewers. We don't want to talk about the Son of the Mask.
I like Son of the Mask.
Really?
Yep.
No, I loved the first one with Jim Carrey, but...
Yeah, but that the Loki in Son of the Mask was more threatening than Loki in the Avengers. I'm making that an official statement. You can put that on a T-shirt. Quote me on that.
I am not being quoted on that, by the way.
I will be.
Son of the Mask, really?
Yeah, more threatening. More threatening villain.
Right.
He did more mischievous things in Son of the Mask than he did in Avengers.
Ooh. And we incur the hate mail. Bring it on. So, have you got anything else you want to add on Avengers?
Well, apart from the fact that I really didn't like it, and that to call it anything sophisticated or anything more than what it is, mindless action, and the last hour is just Transformers 3 regurgitated.
And you also have the prospect of a cube of unlimited power.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be fair,
Yeah.
that's probably in the comics. Right, well, my final thoughts. I applaud it for bringing all of these heroes together in one film. The dialogue is really good. It's your typical Joss Whedon witty banter between all of the team. To me, Joss Whedon's kind of hit and miss, but here I think he was probably the best director for it. Where the film lacks is in its story and its character development. And if you're a comic book fan, or if you just want to go there for pure fan service in terms of the action there and Scarlett Johansson, you know, this will be the film for you. If you want something a bit deeper and more character focused and character orientated, then this isn't the film for you. Now, I know people are going to argue, well, if you want character development, watch the individual films. No, you still have to have character development in this film, and it just doesn't deliver in that regard. If you like pretty special effects and action, great, power to you. You will love this film.
Yeah.
For me, I don't hate this film, but it's just nothing extraordinary or original like its build and what people are saying on the internet.
Yeah, I have to say, I am not a Joss Whedon fan. I didn't like Firefly, I didn't like Buffy, and I thought Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog was okay. I don't like Joss Whedon as a writer, as a director, or as, well, I was about to say as a person, but I don't know him as a person, so I can't really say that.
To me, he's very hit and miss. I like his series Dollhouse, and I like Cabin in the Woods. That's probably my favourite film of the year so far, in fact. But yeah, he's very hit and miss. I'm not a fan of Buffy, and I didn't particularly like what I saw of Firefly either. But You know, I think he does good dialogue, and I think that worked for the film, but it's just a shame the story and the rest of the character development wasn't up to much.
I also want to see Christopher Nolan's The Avengers.
Oh god. Social
Nolan's The
commentary.
Avengers. I want that
Social
to happen.
commentary everywhere.
He'd just reboot The Avengers and just have him write it and direct it. You know, it may not work, but you'd have a better director on there than Joss Whedon. That's all I've got to say, really.
I understand needing the prospect of these action scenes though with these heroes, but if it had just been balanced with a better story and more thought out characters, you know, it could have been one of my favourite films perhaps, but unfortunately it wasn't. And I actually did hear that Joss Whedon originally wanted to be the person to reimagine the Batman franchise and carry it over into a Justice League film. But when Christopher Nolan came in, he's now gone to Marvel, and arguably re-envisioned Marvel as a film company. And certainly the next few Marvel films will be all centered around gearing up for the Avengers 2, which comes out in 2015, and created and further expanded the Marvel universe in film. So I guess you can't fault him for that, but let's just hope that the next few films we get are more focused on character.
God, I would have hated to have seen what Joss Whedon would have done with Batman. Because
apparently,
I'm not a Joss Whedon fan, and
apparently he wanted to make it more in tone with the Tim Burton films, which I would have liked, personally for me. But he would have created an original villain, and the studio didn't like that. And I don't think I would have liked that either, especially when you've got, you know, rich pickings of villains to choose from.
Who have something to do, or you can use to enhance Bruce Wayne's character, Batman's character. To create an original villain. I think we're going off on a tangent here, but
yeah, we're going off.
To create an original villain, you have to make sure that villain can be used in some way to bring out Batman as a character. And you have villains already there that could do just that.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's really all I've got to say on the matter.
With Marvel anyway, for the next few years we'll have Iron Man 3, Thor 2 and Captain America 2, which will then gear us up for the Avengers in 2015, followed by a Hulk film, apparently. So those are your next Marvel films, and I don't think we've got anything to say on Avengers, so...
No. That's it from us on the Avengers, and you know, the swarms of hate mail will come in and bring them on.
Please don't sharpen those pitchforks.
Thanks a lot for listening, guys.
Thank you.